Thank you, Rex Hunt, for your rockin' rendition of our theme, and welcome to episode 35 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast, where we talk about the best Australian comedy show from the 90s ever made, The Late Show, and other D-Generation comedy tidbits. My name is Matt, and joining this podcast today is Alison, Daniel, Kim, and Prue. Hi! Welcome back, Prue.
Thank you.
Hey, it's great to have the team back again, and one day we'll have Tony on as well, so we'll have the complete set going on. But we've also got a special guest reviewer here too, and I do apologise if you don't like this term, but I'm calling you an awesome late show extra. We have Julie Poulter.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome. What is your attachment to The Late Show?
Well, I did work experience with The Late Show for 2 weeks when I was in year 10 in 1993.
Wow, that is amazing.
How'd you get that? Because I reckon there must have been a whole bunch of kids who wanted that gig.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't even really think that it would be possible until I was watching season 1 of The Late Show. And I'm sure you recall on the news desk one day, there was Wendy, the work experience student, and she delivered a joke and she got to be on the news desk. And I was watching that in year 9 and my work experience was coming up the following year. And from that moment, when I saw Wendy, it was decided that I was going to get my year 10 work experience on The Late Show. And, you know, I didn't go to an elite school with lots of showbiz connections, but what I did have was the fact that my mum's cousin worked at the ABC. And, you know, she worked somewhere deep in the admin department. However, what she did give me was the name of the production manager and the address that I could write away to ask for work experience on The Late Show. And so I did. And, you know, you get year 10 work experience, you have a form letter asking you if it's possible. And so I did that. But just to, you know, really give my application a bit of pizzazz, I don't really tell anyone this, but because it's pretty lame now that I look back on it. But I really wanted to express how keen I was. So, you know, that joke that you see on cartoons where under stupid, there's a picture of you in the dictionary. I photocopied a page of the dictionary under keen, and I put a picture of myself under keen in the dictionary. Hey guys, it was a colour photocopy, so you know, I really went the extra mile, and I'm pretty embarrassed to talk about it now because it does sound so lame. But guess what? It worked.
All right.
Yay. So they actually wrote back to confirm this, or did they call you up? How did you find out?
They wrote back. I think they wrote to the school, and I just remember there was like a knock on the door in English class, and like my hands were shaking when I opened up this letter on the ABC stationery, and I opened it up and it said, "You've been accepted," and I could not believe it. And everyone in class, they were all Late Show fans as well. Everyone was just cheering and hugging me, and it was just such a beautiful moment.
It was like Sydney winning the Olympics.
It was exactly like that.
So what did you see while you were on work experience, Julie? I mean, did you witness them filming holy shit or making bar jars, or what did you see them do?
Well, I mean, a lot of it was really in the office, which was the TV comedy headquarters, which was down on Glen Huntly Road in Elstonwick, not too far from the ABC studios, but they had their own separate workspace. So I saw a lot of meetings and a lot of writing, but the most memorable sketch that I was part of was the Arnold Schwarzenegger Citizen Kane sketch. I think we'll be talking about that later. Yeah, as far as an environment for work experience goes, you could not have better than that Arnold Schwarzenegger sketch because it had everything. It's got pyrotechnics, it's got gunfire, it's got prosthetic makeup. And so that set the bar pretty high for what work experience could be. So, and I was also part of the It's Academic sketch, which was another iconic one. I think that we'll be talking about that a little bit further into the future, but there was a crack team of girls who beat the hell out of Santo's Ivanhoe grammar. The team was Jane, Judith and Julie.
Oh, wow.
So
Actually, while we're talking about it, I will show you the props department made me my own nameplate that says Julie, and that was the only thing that I kept from my time on work experience. So I've brought along to show you guys today. I think we'll have to take a photo for the Facebook page.
That was just so cool. What were the dates that you were actually there in 93?
Whew. I have a feeling it was in September because I think that was the standard work experience dates. But
Yeah.
I think, Daniel, you should have in your TV guide because the date that it aired was actually the date of my work experience, week 1.
Right.
Because this is the 25th of September, this episode that we're about to
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go. It was September.
Yeah.
that's awesome. All right, well, we've got plenty more to unravel from your history there, so I'm really, really looking forward to it. So we'll get straight into it. All right, simply the bar jars competition. Record your own quote, make a fart noise, email it to us, and you could win a Bluey box set. So,
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, really. I think I over-describe it. First prize, Bluey box set from Crawford's DVD, bought by mygeekculture.com.au, as well as second prize will be the Late Show Champagne Edition DVD. I got to say thank you very much to Michael Warren, aka Lucky Jackson. He has donated some of his CDs, so you may know him from Potluck when you were singing the Elvis song a couple of episodes ago. So yeah, he's donated a couple of his CDs as well. So please enter that. Also, I just got to point out too that I've got to say that previous guest host and podcast listener, Stephen Plunkett, has reminded us all that it's actually someone's 102nd birthday, and this clue might give it away.
How's this? This is the great Japanese actor Toshiro Mifune doing the theme from Happy Days, and goes, "Oh, Sunday, Monday, Happy Days! Sunday, Wednesday, Happy Days!"
His birthday was on the 1st of April.
That's Toshiro Mifune's, not Tony Mark.
Yeah, exactly.
We were
Yeah.
wondering who that was. So he's obviously has a long distinguished career then.
An actor, yes. Also, I just want to say a big cheerio and hello to all our 3AW listeners who have just jumped on board. So, because I made a small appearance on 3AW's Remember When with Simon Owens and, of course, Philip Brady. And did exactly what you said, Daniel, and that was I ended up reverse interviewing Philip. So, if you don't mind, can I play a snippet?
Let's hear it.
For it.
Yeah.
3AW 693.
All right, now first, we've got a heap of calls coming through, so we will get to you very soon.
Matthew wants to ask, I think, a small favour. Good evening to you, Matthew.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Oh,
G'day,
great.
Matthew. We're good.
Simon's here too, of course.
Yes, of course. Now, I do a podcast which is all about the late show, the D generation, you know, the one that was on ABC TV from 1992 to 93.
Yeah, the Late Show, yes.
Legendary.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, you were on it, Phil, as a celebrity stooge.
Yeah, Pete Smith and I were on the Late Show quite frequently, Matthew, as you'll know.
Yes, and there was one episode that we've recently done, and you were part of the muck raking tour with Mick Malloy and Jason Stevens.
That's
Yes,
right. And I
with
think
Granny Davis?
Yeah, and Granny was on board. And I think we stopped at Molly Meldrum's house.
Yes, that is correct. Now, there was a bit where the car was going by and there was a cheeky fruit bowl being pressed against the window.
Yes, and I've explained to you that my body double took part in that. I'd long left the set by then. And can I tell you who the culprit was?
Please do.
Mick Malloy, all right?
They were the glutes of Mick Malloy.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, Matthew, I plead not guilty.
So, thank you, Phil and Simon.
Yeah, it was a good plug you got in there, Matt, because I decided to listen in live. Usually I listen the day after on the podcast. It was marred a little bit by you having to say the word piss week
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
in reference to the kids, although you immediately apologised. I think you
very quickly.
I can tell you didn't want to say that sort of language in front of Philip Brady.
Or Queenie, of course. Queenie would have been listening on the phone line, so she would have been very offended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thankfully, Phyllis was on the phone there, but she couldn't hear anything. So
It's more or less, I straight away thought of, that whole, hello, Channel 9. Yes, I like to complain, straight up.
So, yeah, if you want to hear the thing in full, Remember When is available as a podcast. If you search 3AW Weekend Nights, wherever you're listening to us. Why not subscribe to both of us?
Yeah.
I've got the paper. I've got the paper.
Daniel Genie's program guide.
Thanks, Matt. So we're looking at Ross Warnicki's Critical Guide from the Saturday Age. Now, just before I begin, just a reminder that the weekend that we're looking at is the Festival of the Boot, as Roy and HG would call it. So earlier today, we had the AFL Grand Final on Channel 7, Carlton versus Essendon. We're going to find out who won in that a little later in the show. Tomorrow on Channel 9 and the ABC, I don't know how that works out, but it's some sort of weird arrangement where, you can choose to have it without ads on the ABC or with ads on Channel 9. We've got the Rugby League Grand Final, St George versus Brisbane. But anyhow, back to what's up against Season 2, Episode 15. Starting with Channel 7, we've got Inspector Morse, an episode titled The Service of All the Dead. Warnicki describes it as this. First, a church warden is murdered. Then, some parishioners at a rural church meet gruesome deaths too. This is one of Morse's most perplexing cases. And that's followed at 10:45 by a documentary about late-night radio called Night Voices. It features Bruce Mansfield and Philip Brady, again, from 3AW, Father Gerard Dowling from 3UZ, and Fox FM's Dr. Feelgood. Over on Channel 9 at 6:30, we've got Hey Hey It's Saturday. Quite a lot of songs being performed on tonight's episode, starting off with the sweet performing Fox on the Run. What else? Trevor Marmalade celebrating at the Essendon Bombers dinner. So that might
be the grand final, yeah.
Yeah, that might give you an indication as to who won that day. Considering the show's out of Melbourne, to sort of pay a bit of lip service to the rugby league, they've got the Balmain Tigers captain Benny Elias in as well to preview the grand final. We've got the Bad Loves performing I Remember. Then on Red Faces, we've got the lead singer of Yothu Yindi, Mundawa Unipingu, and Tracy Dale from Our House. And then to round things out, Annie Crummer performing Seven Waters, and Andrew Strong of The Commitments performing Ain't Nothing You Can Do. Then at 8:30, we've got another movie. You might be able to work it out if I do this. There she was, just walking down the street singing.
Diddy diddy dum diddy do.
Yes, it's the comedy Stripes. As Ross Warnicki puts it, the undemanding 1981 Army life comedy with Bill Murray as a smart aleck loser who, along with his mate, played by Harold Ramis, joins the Army and runs into generally predictable hurdles. Not much to it, and Abbott and Costello have been there before, but you tend to laugh in spite of yourself. So, yeah, not much of a fan there, really. Now, over on Channel 10 is something kind of unique, I think, well, for 1993 at least. Ross Warnicki says, cashing in on the box office success of Harrison Ford's latest movie, Channel 10 screens a 3-hour compilation of the excellent 60s drama series upon which Ford's film is based, The Fugitive. The late David Jansen plays Richard Kimball, who escapes after being convicted of his wife's murder to pursue the one-armed man who really did it. I don't know whether that counts as a spoiler alert, saying that it was the one-armed man that really did it.
I think so. He would have been amazing in 93. Everyone would have been watching that.
Well, see, these days, whenever there's the predictable sequel of a movie, usually all of the movies that precede it get dumped onto some digital multi-channel. But, obviously when you've only got 5 channels in 93, that's, this sort of being able to see what's led up to the latest movie is a bit of a luxury. Last of all, we reach the ABC, so our lead in, of course, it's Birds of a Feather. What'll I do? So this is Season 2, Episode 14, Jobs for the Girls. In order to make money for Christmas, Sharon becomes a pet sitter and soon has competition from Dorian's 13-year-old nephew, Adrian. Meanwhile, Tracy becomes a typist and after having problems with the typewriter uses a word processor. She agrees to type up a novel that Dorian claims she has written. She later notices that her novel is a copy of The French Lieutenant's Woman, and she admits that she just wanted Sharon and Tracy to think that she was talented. Unfortunately, Doreen's not talented, but she is still a dick. The listing for The Late Show at 10 o'clock, Warnocky is still not changing from his usual satire and sketch comedy from Melbourne's DGen. And at 11 o'clock, we have a British teleplay about a young woman making life in literary London after the war called Heading Home, starring Jolie Richardson and Gary Oldman. The description in the Green Guide puts it thus: a naive country girl moves to London after the war and soon finds herself torn between two men from very different worlds. Then at 12:30, we've got the ATVI News, and at 1 a.m, Rage. The Green Guide helpfully says that it contains guitars and metal.
All right.
So nothing else, guitars and metal. And that's what was up against The Late Show.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Now it's time to brutally dissect Season 2, Episode 15 of The Late Show, broadcast on Saturday, September 25, 1993. And straight up, this is where the teaser came in.
The International Olympic Committee.
It goes on for a minute.
Get on with it.
Yeah. So it's all the team are on the couch in what room would it have been, Julie?
Oh, in the couch. I think it might have been one of their houses.
Ah, okay. So yeah, the team are on the couch and they're just waiting for the announcement of the 2000 games, and of course,
The winner is Sydney.
they won. Hooray!
Yeah, am I the only Sydney sider here? Because I definitely stayed up, and I remember. Oh yes, so Matt, you as well. You would have been stayed up. You would have stayed up as well, surely.
Primary school, it might all be in year 6, so therefore, I think I did. Yeah.
What time was the announcement?
God, it was like 3 in the morning or something ridiculous.
Oh my
wasn't
God.
It? Yeah, it was really. Yeah, you definitely would have had to either wake up really early or just stay up the entire night. But I think it was was it a Friday? I remember it was. Having to go to school or work or something the next day. But I remember doing a speech the day before in English class about why we should get the games, because I thought, gosh, if we lose and they choose me to do the speech on Friday, I won't have anything to talk about. So I volunteered myself beforehand.
Nice work.
I can give you just a quick, you could maybe call this an extra to the program guide. As the DGen kind of insinuate, it was a bit of a marathon slog through the night. According to the Green Guide, the announcement was scheduled for 4:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, basically all 3 commercial networks and the ABC had special programming the Thursday night / Friday morning. ABC, for instance, had a telecast from Homebush Sports Centre, hosted by Live and Sweaty's Karen Teig, with Mark Warren, George Negus, and somewhat prophetically, Roy and HG. Mm-hmm. 7 Network had a special called Share the Spirit at 10:30 p.m, hosted by Ann Sanders, followed by a replay of the 1992 Barcelona Games opening ceremony, then Bruce McAvaney live in Monte Carlo. Channel 9 had a program at 7:30 p.m, hosted by Ray Martin and Liz Hayes, then did most of their regular programming, but came back at 3 a.m. with a Today Special. So Liz Hayes and Steve Liebman basically going through to 9 a.m. And then Channel 10 had, at 11 p.m, they had an extended 1-hour edition of Sports Tonight hosted by Tim Webster. Sports Tonight had only just started, I think maybe about a month prior, roughly. That was followed at midnight by Chariots of Fire. Then the announcement telecast at 2:30, hosted by Tim Webster and Anne Forward.
What did SBS have? Did they have a sort of French film that was completely nothing to do with the Olympics?
They had the test pattern.
Excellent.
So, which seems very unlike SBS, considering they're all bringing the world back home. The DGen weren't lying when they said that it was a marathon slog through, and talking about the history of the Olympics, and they're only up to Helsinki.
There is a YouTube video that Kim shared with us before the show that has a clip or multiple clips of various news representations from the ones that you were basically mentioning, Daniel. The one that I did watch I didn't watch the entire thing, but the most entertaining one was the Today Show with Monty Dwyer. and
Yeah.
he's just being ambushed in the crowd.
There's this really drunk lady who just goes, Salam, salam. It's just that whole party atmosphere, and they just cut to all these people who are just extremely pissed, but that's the highlight of it. And it was just a trip back in time watching that. I'll share it on the Facebook group later on, but it's really funny. They even go to shops that have the Olympic in their name just to say, oh, you can take advantage of your name and get some more business.
So yeah, it's really good news for the DGen, but not so good news for somebody by the name of Ling Chai. Well, I don't know who Ling Chai actually is, but it turns out that he's been sitting with the DGen the whole time, not making a single sound, even through Rob Stitch saying that they're missing out on Spy Force over on another channel. But yeah, because Sydney won and Beijing didn't, he has to run around in his undercrackers 2,000 times, as Rob shouts out.
Funny.
And do you think that harks back to the Mick Malloy versus Eddie Charlton game of pool, where Eddie Charlton
Yeah. Was anyone at the time completely confused by Rob's Spy Force comment? It was just a show I had no concept of. A bit like Rush and Bluey. I'm like, what is he talking about?
Yeah, Spy Force is a Crawford's show. It's
I
a
know, but I think in the 90s it was buried on, like 3 a.m. time slot, so I wasn't watching it.
No.
I think
Got Jack Thompson in it, hasn't it?
yeah, and Peter Sumner. Yeah.
So it does sound like worth a watch.
Well, see, I think Channel 9 might have played Spy Force a bit like. I couldn't spot it in the program guide, to be honest, but there were very early morning repeats of the Sullivans, like Monday to Friday on Channel 9, so it would have been one of those kind of repeats.
After the opening titles, and we have the opening remarks with Judith and Mick on stage. Now, where is Tony?
I've got to be honest with you, Mick. I think his exact words were, "Bugger, Mick Malloy, I can't be stuffed."
I beg your pardon?
Bugger, 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 he said.
Did he say it with as much venom as that?
Oh, maybe even more.
Gee,
That was funny.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious Tony Martin's in makeup for a very good reason, which we'll find out soon.
It was entertaining that when he did the flashback sequence or the dream sequence, and then Santo interrupts saying, actually, he can't make it to this either, so...
And then he recommends he does the Tony Barber dance. It's a little dance from Santo.
Yeah, it's sort of like an anti-joke just about. Or an anti-running gag even.
So they mentioned AFL Grand Final, Essendon winning, and also some stuff to do with Russia.
There's quite a good line actually in the bit about Russia, and they talk about Boris Yeltsin, who was the president at the time, being an old drunk bastard, which he was. And then there's a rather prophetic line. They say, who are they going to replace him with? And of course, that brought a shudder to me, having spent, well, like all of us, a month watching the horrible footage from Ukraine, because we know who came after Yeltsin, and it's not been good.
Yeah, kind of preferring the Andy Capp approach.
Yeah, they should have stuck with the drunk guy, I think.
To change the topic, they did refer to the Sydney Olympics winning. Rob is in the audience, and who is he sitting next to?
He's sitting next to myself. So the atmosphere in the studio that night was absolutely electric, because the audience were already excited about being watching the Late Show, about the Olympics, and then as everyone streamed in, they were actually given party poppers and streamers and things like that. And they were told anytime there was any reference to Sydney winning the 2000 Olympics, they were to go absolutely hog wild, which they were going to. But
they certainly did.
Yes. But one of the last minute additions to the show was Rob was going to do his now famous impression of John Fahey. And one of the key moments in that announcement, when John Fahey does like the happy dance, he jumps around and he hugs the nearest person. They needed someone to receive the hug, and that person was me. So as we came into the studio, Rob said to me, now, so, you'll be sitting here, and when I get up, you get up, and I'll just turn around and I'll hug you. And, as the work experience student, you just want to follow those orders to the letter. You never want to get anything wrong, especially on live television. So I'm sitting there, and it's really funny to watch it back. And, I could just see how nervous I was and how excited I was and just admiring Rob and just really being caught up in the moment. So the big announcement, Sydney's won the games. The audience is just throwing all of their streamers. Rob gets up. And what I didn't take into account was that Rob's going to milk it, right? The crowd's loving it. Rob's enjoying himself. And so I can really catch the awkward moment where Rob gets up and I pretty much immediately get up and I'm left standing behind him quite awkwardly while Rob's just like mugging for the cameras and the audience, and he's just getting streamers rained down on him. And I'm just standing there. And finally, after what feels like 10 minutes, finally Rob turns around and hugs me, and pretty much everyone was over it by then. But
so all that time you were waiting for him, when is he going to hug me?
Even watching it back, it feels like 10 minutes. So, then I got my hug, and then we sat back down, and the intro continues.
That's a great story, but it feels like today there would be about 17 different policies to stop that from happening to a child in the workplace.
Well, I got shot at, later in the episode, so I'm very, very fortunate. There really were very lax rules at the time.
Yeah, they would have had to have an intimacy coordinator for just that hug these days, wouldn't they?
You'd have to have a chaperone, and
Yeah, because you were underage. Yeah.
Oh, and also because of the Olympic announcement and the presentation and all that. Now, I'm not sure who Judith was referring to when she was mentioning Anita. I think that was maybe a Channel 7.
Anita Keating.
Ah, God, I feel like an idiot.
Anita Keating, she's Dutch, isn't she? I think, and she gave a speech in the final sort of presentation to the Olympic Committee. Anita Keating got up as the First Lady, I suppose, and she gave her speech in English, French and Italian, not Dutch, alas.
I mean, I was trying to find a clip. Oh, you know why? I was trying to find a news reporter or a journalist or whatever. I didn't even think about any Anita Keating footage. So every time I saw Anita Keating, I skipped and went, oh no, I've got to find the other thing. That's why I couldn't find any of the French references. But Judith does some pretty impressive French.
J'ai appris le français à collège aussi, mais je ne vais pas le faire remarquer.
Which translated means?
I studied French in high school too, but I don't show off about it.
The thing was, I think she said before, formidable Anita,
I remember I was studying French in high school at the time thinking, oh, even I don't understand. I understood the first part, but not the bit about even I don't show off about it. And that was the extent of my French.
But I do think we need to give an honourable mention to Rob Sitch's John Fay expression before the announcement.
The bored face, yes.
Yeah. I've kind of got this on freeze frame in front of me now, and you've got Julie just behind him with his big grin, kind of waiting for it to happen, but no.
Also, Judith makes a reference to a Melbourne taxi driver. This was a little bit awkward, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess, like, a lot of female celebrities get these really dodgy kind of letters from dodgy men, where they talk about how much they like them and appreciate them in a really kind of creepy way. And I think this is probably an example of that she describes it as a taxi driver who gets busy in the nether regions whenever whenever I and Jane appear on the screen. So I think she basically just thought, well, the only way to deal with this creepy letter is just to take the piss out of this guy. So she did.
Like, you think about it, at the time, there's no way any other female celebrity would ever call that out. So it's weird.
Yeah, that's the perfect phrase for it, calling it out, really.
Yeah.
My guess is that the taxi driver may have told one of the male members of the group who decided to let Jane and or Judith know, hopefully in the that's not a good thing context. The taxi driver would have to have some chutzpah to say it in front of Jane or Judith if that wasn't the case.
So how they found out is not exactly made clear, but I can sort of look back on one of my tasks as the work experience student was also to open the mail, and can confirm that the office did receive like copious amounts of mail, and a lot of it was actually just general fan mail attached, to everyone, but there was a lot of, letters directed at particular cast members, and Mick received probably the most. And, a lot of the crew were kind of laughing because apparently, in the days before you could slide into someone's DMs, Mick was getting nudes, but like Polaroids.
Wow.
And I remember one letter that really struck me was a letter to the entire cast, and it was from someone who was obviously going through a really hard time, and it actually said, "Saturday night is the only night that I don't cry myself to sleep," and just went on to say like how important this show was, and it really found it so touching. And so the cast did, read all of the mail that they received. So yes, possibly the taxi driver wrote a special love letter to Judas and Jane, or one of the male cast members was possibly a passenger in his taxi. But yeah, there was a lot of mail, and some of it was funny, and some of it was really touching.
It's nice to know that they actually read all the letters, because I know that we wrote so many letters to the Late Show. And my friend Kunio was saying the other day, because they were in Sydney the next week, she always wanted them to come to Sydney, so she maintains it was her idea in the first place to this day.
And now it's over to the news desk with Tommy G.
And it's all about Olympics. And yeah, so there's, as you said, as soon as anything in regards to Sydney 2000 games, boom, lots of cheering.
And foot stomping.
And plenty of foot stomping, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like in the room when the audience went apeshit, Julie?
It was wild. It was really genuinely charged, and I think that I'd been in the audience other times, so the Sydney announcement I think added an extra layer to what was already there, and I was one of those people who was lucky enough to get tickets a few times, and the excitement did ratchet up between season 1 and season 2, just because the fandom was so much stronger. And so I think people were already excited just to be there. And then, yeah, I think all they needed was permission and some streamers to go absolutely bananas.
Now, news, it's pretty much all about Olympics and how they're trying to work out why they failed, which was basically some aggression and allegations the video was tampered with, such as Tiananmen Square exotic dancers and dead bodies featuring in the video.
Yeah, a bit wrong.
Istanbul's final presentation was basically one guy telling the camera to give us them.
Yeah, that was funny. Give us them.
There is also the genuine, as Tom puts it, the biggest laugh of the night, being the reaction from Beijing. Juan Antonio Samaranch was just reading out the list of the 5 bidding cities, and lists Beijing first, and because they hear their own name, they think they've won it. So all the streamers go off and everybody's celebrating, thinking that they've won it.
Yeah, the funniest thing of that segment wasn't even a joke, it actually happened.
It actually happened,
yeah. Oh, don't worry, Beijing, you'll get it one day.
And they did.
So Bruce McAvaney is in the studio, who's flown directly back. Wasn't he a little bit tipsy?
I can list the 43 Olympic delegates, all that voted for Australia. Here I go, Bella, Portugal, Carrara of Italy.
I think
Taylor, France.
Bruce will cut you. We got...
Only kidding.
Bruce, you're a professional. You just stay there. We'll move on with the news. Is that okay?
I have a little sleep.
Little nap. Good boy.
If you liked Rob's Bruce McAvaney impersonation, you're going to love Rob's drunk Bruce McAvaney impersonation.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Keating visits royal family in Balmoral, then goes to Ireland and...
Gets made to sit on the naughty chair.
Treasurer John Dawkins threatens to retire while everyone cheers. He retracted his comments, saying that it wasn't the Senate or opposition letting him down, it was the pesky phone calls.
G'day, it's John Blackman from Telecom Mobile Net here. Who's that?
That's the 8th one.
It's nice to get one of those again.
And then Rob as Bruce McAvaney going, oh, that John Blackman joke, I was missing last week.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
Yeah, I think a lot of us noticed it was missing last week.
Sketch time, and it is a bizarre black and white commercial dedicated to wigs. And I had no idea what it was. I don't know if anyone else did, but Julie did work it out.
I definitely don't think the audience did, because there was some titters, but it was largely silence from the audience, I've got to say.
Thanks for sending that ad through, Julie, because I knew it at the time and I got the joke at the time, but I completely forgot that it was a Schwarzkopf ad.
Yeah, I do definitely remember this ad. It was one of those arty black and white, for Schwarzkopf's products, and it was just like a reflection of that whole aesthetic at the time with the black and white kind of high art fashion stuff, and they just really took the piss out of it in a very the late show fashion, which is always very accurate, very biting satire.
I was somewhat involved in some of the brainstorming for this sketch. So, as you guys have already mentioned, it was a sort of shot-for-shot parody of a Schwarzkopf ad, and their idea was for the wigs to get more and more ridiculous as the ad progressed. And so one of the shots from the original commercial featured a model running down the streets of Paris and her hair's blowing majestically in the breeze. And so for Judith's wig, she wanted something that was going to react to the wind in some way. And so we were just sitting around the office, and, of course, like I was just tagging along. And so Judith was sort of throwing it out to the group, what would sort of look good like blowing in the wind? And, I sort of shyly suggested, what about one of those like windmills, like the ones they give out at the Royal Melbourne Show? And Judith actually said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And, I just kind of got back in my box and didn't really say much after that. Didn't really think anything of it until that moment when the show was broadcast live, and I hadn't seen the finished sketch. And surprise, surprise, when we get to the shot of Judith running down the street, what's in her wig but the windmills from the Royal Melbourne Show? So I don't know exactly. I don't know what transpired. That Judith maybe saw some in real life and changed her mind, but I had some very mixed feelings when I saw that and realised that my joke had been used. But in the end, I was just chuffed that my idea got on TV.
That's wicked.
Now you've got the opportunity. You've got the opportunity now to claim credit for it on the podcast.
That is the funniest part of that ad. Those whirly in her hair, like that is really, really funny. The rest of it is just a bit like, okay, cool. But yeah, that one was great.
You needed some high school level humour.
I'll tweet out and share on the Facebook group too. I'll do a comparison thing for it too, because I'd never seen the original ad before, and as soon as I saw that, I went, that all makes sense, and that's actually quite funny.
They did a really great job of recreating the soundtrack from the ad, because it is that haunting a cappella sort of number, and I think Jane and Judith actually re-recorded that, and they did a great job.
Yeah, you can definitely hear their voices.
Credit to you for that.
Yeah, additional material, Julie Poulter. Well done.
Did they explain why they chose that particular ad? Were there other ones on the table that they could potentially have done?
No, by the time I got there, that had been decided. I remember seeing that ad a lot in the 90s, but maybe I'm just in the target audience of, just really liking hair products. But yeah, it came to mind straight away when I got to rewatch this. But so yeah, I'm glad it was still on YouTube.
Now we're on stage, and it is one of the most popular, most well-known sketches. I'm really not going to quote it too much because everyone knows it, and that is...
Arnie, thanks for joining us tonight on The Late Show.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be here.
Tony as Arnie, and that's why he had disappeared at the very beginning. Yeah. But the cool part is someone actually asked Tony about this sketch in general, and on Twitter, Tony actually responded, this is on February 14, that the makeup took about 4 hours, if I recall, and it was the days before the softer, quote, Jiminy Glick style appliances that they use now.
Yes, I can confirm that, and I was lucky enough to be present in the makeup department when Tony had the prosthetics done. They hired an additional prosthetics expert on top of the usual hair and makeup team, and it was a great learning experience for me watching it all happen. And Tony, the poor guy, had to get in the makeup 3 times, I think, because it was shot on not only live, he had to do the Arnold piece with Mick in the studio, but they also did the day shoot, which is the Citizen Kane, the shootout in front of the church. But then they also did the night scene, and as I recall, there was 3 separate times he had to sit there and get the makeup done. And the suit itself, there was he had to wear like a muscle suit underneath the clothes, and then there was the full leather suit as well. And I remember going up and touching it, and it could basically stand up on its own. Just the leather was that thick. So it must have been a huge challenge for Tony to even be able to move around in the suit, let alone put on a funny accent and shoot a gun.
It must have been like really heavy and really hot to wear all that stuff.
Incredibly. So this is an even bigger achievement for Tony than just the funny accent, for sure.
Yeah, not only that, the amount of script that he had to remember and flawless kind of delivery of that as well on live television was amazing. We did talk about this sketch a little bit a few episodes ago when Ivan Reitman passed, and it's definitely one of the iconic ones.
Well, this one is currently working on Terminator 3, foreshadowing the future, really, because it wasn't until 2003 Terminator 3 came out, which was up against Tony Martin's Bad Eggs. And didn't that go well? But Terminator 3 was not about the enemy being the little fat kid from Hey Dad.
Hasta la vista, little fat kid.
Though I will point out that there was a joke that was removed from the best of. Did anyone catch it?
Yeah, I felt like the whole stuff about Cyrano De Bergerac was a revelation to me. I'd forgotten about it. So was that the part that was cut out?
Correct.
Yeah, because that was really interesting, like that thing, just shoot him, consider that a poem. Like that was it.
And you're also changing Cyrano De Bergerac into cyborg babysitter.
Yes. It was kind of a bit of a roast of Reitman about how he has all these different writers for all the parts of the script, and he has a writer just for verbs doing it.
Shit, he has a writer for that.
We've got Ivan Reitman, who's fantastic. I think a genius.
Yeah.
One of the weird sights in this sketch is Tony as Arnold holding up that paperback book.
A man and his movies.
Yes.
Because, Tony's been made up to be this big, muscly kind of a man, and he's holding up this paperback book with tiny, tiny hands. It's like that's the only bit that's not quite right about the whole makeup thing. That they couldn't do anything to beef up his hands.
They did take a question from the floor, which is a stranger looking a lot like Dr. Aaron Beaucaire.
Yes, Arnold, I saw that movie, your movie, Last Action Hero, and I found that it wasn't very good.
Opinion noted.
How loud was that gunshot?
I don't remember it being that loud, but we did have to wear earplugs in the pre-recorded sketch, which we'll get to in a sec.
The other person who was in the audience, other than yourself, Julie, was a comedian by the name of Mikey Robbins. So you may know him from Triple J and Good News Week and so forth. But he also worked with Dr. Aaron Beaucaire on Good News Week. But this is what he had to say about being in the audience, as well as paying tribute to Dr. Aaron Beaucaire. So, Mikey, you appeared in this episode, Season 2, Episode 15, and you're in the audience for the Arnold Schwarzenegger part anyway. That's what you're seen on TV.
Yes, I saw the photo you tweeted, and gosh, I remember my hair being that black. That's how long ago it was. I think I was sort of going for the 90s grunge look, but I look more like if Oscar Wilde had been a roadie for Silverchair. never quite carried it off.
How did you get tickets for that?
You know what? I've been racking my brain, and I'm pretty certain round about that same time I was doing Triple J Breakfast. I think we were down in Melbourne doing an OB, and I think this is a long time ago. I might have been making the occasional appearance on Live and Sweaty. Now, I do remember the hotel I was staying at was around the corner in Chinatown. So I was going to stay a few extra days and basically try and yum-cha myself to death. And I'd mentioned to Mark Kennedy, who was working on Live and Sweaty, that if I was staying in town, I was a huge fan of The Late Show, and I think he got me tickets. And that's how I ended up not just at the show, but in the front row, might I add. Pretty bloody pretty bloody good.
Yeah, and you're immortalised on the DVD as well because that's part of the best bits.
Are you kidding me? That's hysterical. Hang on, I should get royalties for that.
Yeah, you got your residuals coming up, don't you?
Man, up until 20 years ago, I was still getting the occasional paycheck for an appearance of Mr. Squiggle from the 80s. But anyway, go on.
Fantastic.
$42 a year.
Wow, you've blown the ABC budget. Now, because that particular moment, Arnold, Tony, shoots a member of the audience, which is Dr. Aaron Beaucaire. And we're a fan of Aaron's work on The Late Show, and we always praise every time he appears and stuff. But you you worked alongside him during the Good News Week days as well, didn't you?
Well, Aaron was pretty much, I think the technical phrase is the blowing shit up guy for the ABC for years. I'm pretty certain Aaron was the guy that introduced the air cannons to the big gig. Remember how the big puppets used to vomit out confetti?
Yeah.
And anyone who watched Good News Week or any of Ted Robinson's work knows that confetti flying through the air is one of his favourite things. So Aaron would always rig up the air cannons, but I always remembered if I got there and Aaron seemed to be running around doing stuff, it meant that we were going to blow shit up. which was fun for me because I know you have to remember Paul and Ted and the writers and the producers, they'd spent the whole week putting the show together, so I never knew what was going to happen until the day I arrived. Until I arrived, I think Aaron's a great bloke and a huge professional, but I always knew that if he was there, it was going to be a long record because we had technical stuff to get through, and of course. Paul used to make a lot of fun about, how scared he was and how frightened he was, but Paul loved blowing stuff up as well. And the fact that by the time we did Good News Week that Aaron had a few fingertips missing, it was always good for a couple of laughs for the studio audience.
Was he an easy person to work with? This is Aaron I'm referring to.
Absolute professional. Absolute. Let's face it, you are talking about flash pots, which, you've got to be careful around. And you're talking about, a panel show mostly made up of comedians, which is like organising cats who've had too much Ritalin. So you really did need a grown-up in the room. And so once you got there, and Ted would say, look, this is going to happen, then Aaron would have this sort of look on his face like, just do as I tell you and no one gets hurt. And we never had an injury. We never had an injury on the set. Not that I remember.
I was going to say, did you get Aaron to help you out or give a warning for anything at all in regards to that? Like, did you?
Actually, there were one or two occasions when we'd be warned and the explosion would be slightly bigger than I thought it was going to be. And let's put it like this: if you ever go back through some old Good News Week tapes on YouTube, I know people watch them on there. If I swear or jump, it's a genuine reaction because I am not that good an actor. So it was always that thing. It was like, I know something's coming. I think it's going to be big. Oh, shit, it was that big. Okay, fine. Okay, good.
Unfortunately, Aaron's no longer with us. But
no.
What would you like for Aaron to be remembered by?
Oh, causing Paul physical pain. Paul played it at the hilt, but there was always that chance. And, and Paul's an incredibly brave performer. He'd do anything for a laugh. But there was always that chance that, there were times when that look in Paul's eyes was genuine fear. And any day that happened was a good day for me. Because that was the thing, too. Usually Paul would be in the middle of where the stuff went off. I'd be off to the side. So I could actually just sit down and go, oh, the little fella's about to get, or he might get hurt here.
2022 is the 30-year anniversary since The Late Show was originally broadcast, the first episode being in July 1992.
God almighty. It's just amazing the amount of talent that came out of that show when you think about it.
Now, were they part inspiration because of their early work, say back in the Eon FM days or when the D Generation was on ABC TV in the early mornings or before the young ones?
Not so much the Eon FM stuff because I was always a Melbourne guy. So my first real, I watched the D-Gen. I was a fan of the D-Gen, but I really loved the Late Show. In fact, that was one of the things I said. I was staying in Melbourne and I wanted to get tickets. I just loved. I love the format. I love the fact that it seemed to move seamlessly between sort of stand-up bits, panel bits, and sketch comedy, which no one was doing at the time. And You know, I can't remember if it was the show I was there, but, you know, we've all got bits. I still think one of the funniest rants I've ever heard was Tony. I think Mick might have been involved as well, but I remember Tony Martin going on about he'd been to see Neil Diamond in concert, and Neil Diamond had not said, "Good Lord." And he ran with this for ages. It's one of the funniest bits I've ever seen in my life.
Have you actually worked with any of the members at all?
I made a guest appearance on Mick's. Remember Mick made a sitcom a couple of years ago about sort of, you know, comedy performers?
Yeah, The Jesters.
The Jesters, yeah. I was in that, and I actually played myself. I don't think I had a scene with Mick, but I remember he directed. And he was very gentle for a man who can barely act, even playing myself.
Yeah, so there you go. Like a nice homage to Dr. Aaron Beaucaire.
Yeah.
Because after all, he is
fantastic. I think a genius.
I do love the last bit where, Tony, where'd you get your suit? Oh, Solway, where the big men go.
where the big men buy, which I think, like, I'm only an Adelaidean, but I'm pretty sure that's a World of Sport reference.
Solway.
Like they used to do a lot of sponsorship stuff on Channel 7.
Is Solway is that like Lowe's?
No, it was such a niche reference. So it was like this shop, and I'm not sure how many other shops there were, but there was one in Moorabbin, and you would drive past it every day on the Pearl Highway. And I was just like always seeing that for years after, going, Solway. That's where Tony got his suit.
It's a reference in line with stacks of slacks, if you know what I mean.
Okay. That just went whoosh over my head. I mean, I kind of got the context of it, but yeah.
Oh, I don't even think I realised how local the reference was. I just understood it and went, okay, cool.
There is still a shop there in Moorabbin, but it's called Big and Tall now. So I wonder if it's actually the same kind of shop. But, you know, maybe they realised that Solway was a bit too obtuse, and they've just changed to Big and Tall just to make sure that they know.
Mighty. I think it's Big and Mighty.
Oh, High and Mighty. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Solway sounds like a Miller's Fashion Club type thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For men who are over 6'5" and more than 100 kilos.
As they wrap up the Arnie chat, he was there to also play the new trailer for his new movie, the remake of Citizen Kane. Now, Julie, you said that you were part of this.
That's right. Yes, I was one of the guests at the ill-fated wedding in the Citizen Kane trailer. So this was probably the biggest thing that I got a chance to be a part of. And so so day one of the shoot was going to be the church scene with the big shootout, and Rosebud dies before his very eyes. And so on the lead up to the shoot, they were actually having trouble finding a church for the location, because churches were fine. You know, can a crew from the ABC come and do some filming? Oh, yes. And then when they actually let slip that there was going to be gunfire, all of the churches pretty much pulled out. So they had to really dig deep and pull some strings, and so the location for the nerds out there, the location is actually the Scotch Church at Scotch College. And so on the day of the shoot, so the day before, we were told we could all be extras, like anyone from the office could be an extra, as long as we came dressed in what could be wedding guest attire. So, you know, me just being the work experience kid, you know, from high school, I didn't really have anything that was going to be appropriate. So my wonderful mother stayed up late the night before, and she made me a snazzy bolero jacket to put over one of my summer dresses. Yeah, so thank you, Mum. So I turned up in one of just my regular summer dresses with my snazzy bolero over the top, and we all piled into a minibus, and we all went to the location and gathered outside the church. And so we were all given a safety briefing. We were given earplugs to wear because there was going to be some serious gunfire. Dr. Aaron Beaucaire was there, of course, and because there was you know, so many guns, there was also Aaron had brought another colleague who was a firearms expert. And word on the set was, this guy was very intense. Word on the set was he had a copy of Sexy Girls with Sexy Guns. Like, not for ironic reasons, but he just loved the content. So we were told, the car would arrive, and so I think it was Mick and Santo and another extra were going to open fire on the crowd. And so we were to immediately start to flee in all directions as soon as the gunfire starts happening. So me, again, being the work experience student who never wants to do anything wrong, pretty much as soon as we heard the first explosion, I just bolted, just sprinted around the side of the church, to the point where it came at the expense of my own screen time, because when my friends and family said, "Oh, where were you?" I'm actually not even really in that scene, because I just sprinted so hard you can't even see me.
Just there.
And then the next day of filming was a night shoot, which took place outside the old ABC studios in Ripon Lea. And so this was probably the most exposure I had to the prosthetic makeup process. So the expert that they had brought in was the prosthetics expert, and he was a fascinating man who had the only proper Salvador Dali mustache that I've ever seen in real life, with the waxed curl. So you knew he was a professional. And so out in the driveway, they'd set up all the pyrotechnics and everything, and Aaron Beaucaire and his colleague had it all sorted out. And just the air of nervousness around there, because they really only had enough explosives for 1 or 2 takes maximum. So Tony needed to wade through this, hit every mark with the gun, as well as wearing the crazy suit and all the crazy makeup, and the explosions needed to go off behind him. So there was so much that had to go right. So they spent hours and hours and hours prepping for this, and then probably only about 2 minutes shooting time maximum, but everything went off without a hitch. And I think that's one of the reasons why this sketch is so iconic, because it is really epic, not just by ABC standards, but any standards.
Wow.
So it wasn't a Santo behind his little handy cam. It was actually a genuine big crew and a huge effort.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you might notice that the part of Rosebud was played by Jane, and she was wearing the the quintessential kind of 80s wedding dress, and it was very, very fluffy and white. And as we were standing outside the church, Jane was really fretting that she felt like she looked really ridiculous. And here's me, the work experience kid, and honestly, I just heard her fretting, and I turned around and I said, because I know I'm a big admirer of Jane at the best of times, but I said, no, you look pretty in anything.
No, and, that's great.
And she kind of laughed, because I think everyone could realise how sincere I was. I wasn't trying to suck up. I was genuinely shocked that she thought she looked bad, because she can't look bad.
100%. It is fascinating though how many hours of work went into what really is a blink and you'll miss it moment. I mean, obviously it's a very iconic sketch, but it almost doesn't need that final Citizen Kane thing, because the thing on stage was so funny. That's the thing we quote the most. I don't think many of us really remember the Citizen Kane remake.
I do. No, I love it. I love the line, "I think it would be fun to run a newspaper." And if you've seen the film, the Citizen Kane, the original film, of course, there's lots of other little references you can pick up in it. But that's the key line for me. I think it would be fun to run a newspaper in Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice, which is, of course, is a quote from the real film.
Yeah, and the credits at the end are quite funny too. The cast is really
Gary Busey as Bernstein, and also the film's directed not by Ivan Reitman, who's a genius, but Tony Scott. And now, do we know what Tony Scott directed? He was the director of Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop, Days of Thunder, and many, many more films. So that's who Tony Scott is. But so it's a real sort of film nerds paradise, that sort of final screen. There's lots of references to other production crew as well, famous from that sort of Hollywood film.
Well, the screenplay for this Citizen Kane remake was written by Shane Black, who happened to write the screenplay for Last Action Hero, among many other action movies.
Did he write the verbs as well, or was there a separate guy for that?
Yeah, I think that was one of his. Yeah.
Julie, I just wanted to ask Julie how you remember all of this stuff. Did you keep a diary when you were there? Do you just reflect back, or you just repeated all of these moments in your mind?
No, I didn't keep a diary. I almost wish I did, but when something is that amazing, it just burns itself onto your memory. So watching it back again, it all just came flooding back.
Time for a musical pistake, and that is Jane introducing the sharp Skivvies Are Back. Well, they nailed this perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Remember when you interviewed Jason and he said that they did a better version? It's so true. This is such a good song.
Yeah, when I looked at the original version, I thought, hang on a minute, this is actually better than the original.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Here's a bit of Jason, if you've missed the special Jason Stevens episode of the Champagne Comedy Podcast, talking about this sketch in particular.
Well, I wrote that one. I saw that clip and just wrote that song pretty quickly because I thought, at the time, skivvies nobody ever wore skivvies, and it's like, these three guys in skivvies. So it's like, skivvies are back. And that was like, great, that's the song. And then, with music parodies, legally you've got to do something which is what I call a sound-alike. So it can't be like the original, but it has to be a little bit different enough to the original. But I actually think the version that we came up with was a better song. So I think it's pretty simple to copy because there's only like three members in the band. And I do remember that double bass, which I think was, I don't know if it was a real double bass, I think it was a prop one, but it was so heavy. And we did like, I don't know, it was like, in the end, it was just like, this is getting really heavy. Rob and Santo loved, they were just sort of hamming it up in the background. But we never asked for permission, and I think the guys took it in the right spirit. I think we may have heard back years later they enjoyed it, but I mean, who knows at the time.
There's a lot of effort for a very short sketch.
But this one, I think, has maximum payoff because it was so popular. And I think it's really effective, actually, what they do. It's such a great impression of the film clip. But I have a question for the group. There's a line in it that I couldn't hear, and it was like, this. He's talking about this one's from Golden Breed. Does anyone know the next part of that? It was something like,
I got it in grade 3.
Oh, yeah. That's so great because, of course, we did all go to Woolworths and buy our
Yeah. I got mine from Kmart, Super Kmart.
Target also sold them. I can confirm that.
Am I the only one when I see a skivvy in the shop, their song plays in my head? I go, skivvies!
Yeah.
And I can't stop it. Am I the only one?
No. My generation people.
Well, I just happened to reach out to one of the band members of the Sharp, and that is the drummer of the Sharp, Pete Collins. And I sent him the video, and I got his response. So this is an exclusive chat to the Champagne Comedy Podcast, all about his thoughts on the music clip, as well as some other bits and pieces. Now, before we get into what I want to talk to you about, really, which is the Sharp, apparently you have a bit of history writing with Neighbours.
Correct. Yeah. So 10 years, actually, which is pretty amazing to think about. So I know that the show's met its demise now, finally, after 40 years, which was quite incredible, really. So I was there from 97 to 2007 as a script writer, storyliner. I did a little bit of story editing while I was there for a minute. But it was a fantastic time. It was such a fun time and such a great bunch of people to work with. There was a friend of mine, Marique Hardy, who's a very clever woman. She was working at Neighbours at the time, and I just left the Sharp, and I sort of wondered if I could have a go at it, and I gave it they gave me a 2-week trial, and the 2 weeks turned into 10 years, and it was just an awesome time, an amazing time.
You joined the Sharp in 1991 with Alan Catlin and Charlie Rook. You released the 1992 EP Spinosity. And in 93, the debut album This Is the Sharp. Now, from this album, there were 3 singles. You had Train of Thought, well, that is a personal favourite of mine, Scratch My Back, and Yeah, I Want You. Now, while all the songs are awesome on the album, the singles did well, and the album did chart extremely well on the ARIAs. Now, while you have already made a name for yourselves, on Saturday night, the 25th of September 93, a music sketch had played on ABC TV late at night, lampooning his song and video to Scratch My Back. Now, were you watching the show at the time?
No, God, no. We were probably doing a gig. You know, we used to do crazy amounts of gigs. I think one year we did 320 gigs in 1 year. You know, that only leaves 40 days left of the year, you know, 45 days. Yeah, anyway. So we were very, very busy. But I remember hearing about it very, very soon after it happened and watching it and just thinking it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And also what a great compliment it was to get from a bunch of comedians who we were huge fans of. You know, like if you were living in Melbourne in the early to mid 90s, you were going to be a fan of the DGen or you were going to be a fan of The Late Show. Everyone I knew loved it. We loved it. And to see them take the time and trouble to take the piss out of us was so amazing, you know. And we bumped into Jane Kennedy probably a few weeks after the clip aired, and she was like, "Oh, she's really sort of apologetic. I'm really sorry. I hope you guys weren't offended." And we were like, "Oh, are you kidding?" So she was actually a big fan of the band. So it was a sort of a mutual love situation, I suppose.
With your original music clip, Scratch My Back, who was the costume designer for it, if you can remember?
Oh, my God. I absolutely no idea. It probably would have... Look, it was shot at Channel 10 from memory, shot at the Channel 10 studios. It would have been someone in-house, I'm sure.
The whole piss take of Scratch My Back, Skivvies Are Back, do you think it was too much of an easy target?
Absolutely not. I mean, if you're going to... I mean, look, you look at the other ones they did, like Melbourne cliches, you know, the Things of Stone and Wood. Well, of course that's going to be the subject of your parody because, you know, there are Melbourne cliches in that song. You know what I mean? So you're gonna take the piss out of whatever is the most obvious thing. You know, on a comedy sketch show, you've got 30 seconds to be funny and only slightly more time to produce the damn thing. So you've got to get in, get hard, get funny, and get out again.
What do you think about Santo playing you on the drums?
Oh, Santo's great. I love Santo, you know, and the only sort of signature thing I do on the drums tends to be that kind of stiff kind of movement, which I've finally gotten over. But, you know, again, someone like Santo, I'm a huge fan of. All of those guys, you know, we grew up with them. Rob Sitch, you know, Santo, Jane Kennedy, Nick Malloy, they really are very talented, very funny people. Do
you have any of the fans, like when you've done performances, because the band took a break at about 95, correct? And then you've come back a couple of times.
We did, yeah. And then we did it, it's very hard for me to remember, but I think it was about 10 years ago we did a few shows. And then before that, we did one at the Hi-Fi Bar. So there's been sort of two sort of re-emergences, but that's been about it.
You guys aren't together now, are you? So you don't have any plans to reunite for any anniversaries or anything?
Oh, look, we sort of missed the 30-year anniversary because of COVID. I think the only way that we would do something would be, and your show has actually sort of given me the inspiration to do it, would be if we could somehow do a show that involved us, Frente, and Things of Stone and Wood, you know, apart from the Late Show piss take connection, it really, those three bands at that time, so there was probably us, Bad Loves, Chocolate Starfish, Frente, Things of Stone and Wood, and a few others that was sort of getting popular and getting some traction in the kind of early to mid 90s. And I think if there was a promoter, if a promoter put on a show where those three or four bands could appear, I think it could be like a fun thing to do.
Yeah, well, if you've checked YouTube lately, you have your original video clip of Scratch My Back, and then you have the parody, and the parody has more hits than your own video.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me, honestly. I'm not offended by that. I think I think the thing that I'm appreciative of is that, you know, because YouTube is uncensored, you know, like people can write whatever the hell they want. And some of the comments that some people write about some of the bands and the artists that I've known over the years and played with are really offensive and appalling. But generally, people have been fairly kind to us, and I think that's a nice thing.
He's still got it.
Oh, he does. The cool part is that I love the fact that he would love to form a mini concert or a mini performance thing with Frente and Things to Stone and Wood, just like a reunion thing.
It needs to be called the Skivvies Are Back Tour.
But funnily enough, the Regurgitator were actually playing at Moorabbin Town Hall this weekend or next weekend, I can't remember. And so that would be a perfect thing if they all got together.
That'll be awesome. And I will say too that there is a video version of that interview, and it's a lot longer because he actually plays a couple of other songs as well. He actually quizzes me. So that will be up on the champagnecomedy.com YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Pete, for having a chat. I really do appreciate that time.
It's great that he actually doesn't mind at all, and he really likes the fact that it may well get more positive comments than his original video, but he just doesn't mind it. He's just a really good sport about it.
I mean, they did write the song, the iconic song that got the piss taken out of it. I mean, you got to get credit for that.
Yeah. Now we're back to the couch, and we have Jane talking about Poppy King's new range of lipstick.
I guess I was one of those girls who had the lipstick in a purse or whatever it is that they talk about. That was one of those, the matte lipsticks that were all the rage, the big colours, and I remember buying some, but they really dry your lips out.
I don't remember owning Poppy. I remember owning Yardley, which is really embarrassing. Yeah, not a groovy brand at all.
But Poppy King was sort of known for being this kind of, you know, exciting young early 90s female entrepreneur, and all of her lipsticks had really inspirational names and so forth. And Judith takes the piss out of these lipsticks with lipsticks named after words that I suppose are more relevant to, I guess, the ordinary average punter, as it were. So she's got hypochondria, and she's got worthless, and various lipstick names like that, which is her kind of piss take on Poppy King. And really it then kind of goes into a sort of basically a kind of anti-beauty, anti-fashion, anti-plastic surgery type sketch, where she talks about other things that she's brought out. She's brought out an aftershave called Confusion. She's brought out a perfume called Pissed Off.
That's a great perfume.
Yeah.
I'd buy that.
Yeah, I would definitely buy Pissed Off. And then she just talks about these kind of really cheap ass kind of bad ideas for plastic surgery, like you know, instead of breast implants, you just put some freezer bags in, and you want collagen implants, she'll punch you in the mouth. And anyway, that's basically what the sketch is. It's kind of an anti-beauty sort of piss take, really.
Yeah, and they just reverse things up. So when you've got the before and after photos, the before was someone really skinny and the after was someone a little portly, I guess. And then the receding hairline was the before and after was reversed. And that was a new trend.
Satisfied customers include Kerry Packer, of course.
Yeah. And then there was a disgruntled member of the audience. I don't know if Julie heard anyone actually yelling. Someone who was protesting the whole Kerry Packer reference. Sorry, if you recall.
No, I didn't hear any of that. I was at the back of the studio by that time, so it all went over my head.
Yeah, it was a really weird moment, wasn't it? Because it sounded like someone was pro Kerry Packer in the audience. You're thinking, apart from maybe Kerry Packer's close relatives, who's pro Kerry Packer?
Someone from Channel 9.
Yeah, quite Channel 9's publicity person. Anyway, the conclusion of the sketch is that, you know, if you really don't want to look good, I know who dresses the male members of the Late Show, which is a reference to the kind of slightly daggy interpretations of early 90s fashion that some of our favourites are sporting.
Yeah, it's nice to know that they actually recognised it as bad fashion, because we brought it up a few times.
Pressing pause on the VHS, I did notice that the male cast members of The Late Show are in pretty good company. It was a cutout from the Sunday Age Life section, the 50 all-time fashion disasters according to the experts. And along with the male Late Show members, the repeat offenders were people like Eileen Bond, ex-wife, Coral Knowles, socialite. They seem to put all their occupations or non-occupations next to their names. Lillian Frank, hairdresser. Daryl Summers, television host. Rose Hancock Porteous, wife.
Yeah.
Danny Minogue, singer. Susan Renouf, socialite. And the cast of Neighbours. The whole cast of Neighbours.
Yeah, including Bouncer.
Yeah. It's sketch time, and what a sketch this is, all because of that one article or that one incident or trial, whatever you want to call it.
In the previous episode, we were talking about the Wimmera town of Antwerp and how there'd been an exorcism in that town, which had sadly resulted in the death of a woman. And this seems to have inspired this sketch in which Frank and Tina Martin are exorcists, suburban exorcists.
Yeah, totally cash. You know,
Yeah.
What I did love, and by the way, the exorcists are played by Mick and Judith. Now, I did get a kick out of, and I'm surprised that it actually got through the ABC filters, really, the censorship. This moment when they're on the phone taking a booking.
Are you possessed, are you? By whom? Beelzebub. Oh, all right. Hang on one second. Bloody Beelzebub?
20% off all Beelzebub deals this month only, Dal. I reckon we can do that for $120.
Hey, what do I tell you? Hey, we won't be beaten on price, yeah. Okay, see ya. Sorry, what was that? Yes, your mother sucks cocks too.
He can say sucks cocks after 10 p.m. on a Saturday night, can't he?
They've really earned their adult humour and their classification.
Yeah, where's the woman saying adult humour? Chuck her in at this point.
We wish to advise that the following edition of The Late Show is rated M and contains adult humour.
So, this was not a bad sketch at all, where it's more documentary, follow camera style of Frank and Tina Martin. They go through the house, the bathroom is just covered in blood because there was one person, or there was a claim that Frank said that he was trying to help out a guy who thought he was possessed by Simon Townsend.
By the spirit of Simon Townsend.
Yeah, the spirit, yeah.
With his little inane giggle, as they say. In the sketch.
I was just thinking, this sketch is so great because it starts off as a fairly great idea. Like, let's take the idea of these two suburban exorcists and make them very mundane. They're running a little small business, mum and dad sort of cottage industry. But then they inject it with some really fucking bizarre things, right? There's the whole, I'm possessed by Maury Field.
Your brownie mango. Sorry, I didn't say that very well.
Well, I'm possessed by the spirit of Maury Field.
Now, you're certain it's Maury Field?
Oh, yeah, because sometimes in mid-sentence I stir a wreath, you bloody mongrels!
The whole thing when they're in the morgue and he's being questioned,
yes.
and then it just pans over to Mickey Mouse having to identify Mickey Mouse.
Do you remember this is where Mick was talking on the radio last year about how they'd originally wanted to do B1 and B2 in the morgue, and they couldn't get permission from the ABC, so they went with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse.
But they look like the Aldi version of Mickey and Minnie. Nothing really wrong with those masks.
Very much so.
This sketch is an Easter egg on the Barge Ass and Olden Days DVD, and they do put up on the screen. Yeah, please note we were trying to put B1 and B2 here.
Oh wow!
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, double verified.
I got a good giggle out of the holy water.
Yeah, Rob does a really great spit take, and apple ties is disgusting, isn't it? Blech.
It's just busy apple juice, isn't it?
I don't mind apple ties. It's all right. I mean, I'd rather have a bottle of champagne, but
or cider even. Yeah, I also love there's a shot of a Dick Smith answering machine, which is just I don't even think it's from the 90s. I feel like it might be from the early 80s.
Hello, it's Dave here, and I think... Could you call me back on 630-1239 or at work on 630-2314? Hello, Gus Mercurio here. I got message by the devil. I just sound like I am. Hey, what am I, the big rancher?
Yeah, I think it's those little details that really make this sketch just sing.
Seems like Tony uses this sketch as an excuse to get away with some of his impressions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do like the end bit where they go, night, Tina, and then night, Maury.
Yeah, bloody mongrel.
Yeah, they had to sneak another one in there.
All right, now it's a live sketch, and this one, I feel like skipping it.
All I'm going to say is I have written down on the paper, yellow face, shit.
Do you know what I'm wondering about this sketch, right, though? Because they announce who wins the Olympics like 36 hours before the Late Show goes out, okay? So did they have in the tank a Sydney version of this where all the Sydney Olympic Committee are sitting around going, oh, no, we lost the Olympics or whatever, right? You know?
That is a good question, and I don't know the answer to that, but I suspect this sketch was hastily put together in the wake of the announcement, and I think that the fact that it's slightly uncomfortable viewing suggests that it was a last-minute addition.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you feel watching that again after so long?
So the notes that I made were hasn't aged well and uncomfortable viewing.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, some of the issues that they raise are fair game these days. It's you know, but it's that accent thing and the whole the costume that the costumes
And the eyeliner.
Yeah, that's what really kind of undermines what they're trying to get forward in the satire.
I have one grab which might be okay.
Oh, I think our mascot was a little bit harsh too.
Oh, what's wrong with Terry the Tank? What about our logo? Our logo is great. Come on, doesn't anyone think the tank is lovable?
I think the IOC's response said it all. Dear Beijing, tanks but no tanks.
Congratulations. 9 years we've tried to get that joke into a sketch and we're finally done.
Hey, back to me.
I mean, what's the worst thing you can say about that bit is that it's heavy-handed satire. You know, I quite actually like the idea of the wheels in the tank being like the Olympic rings. That's funny.
That was the only part.
Just the absolute coaxing from Tom when everybody else gets up to shake his hand. It's just
They kill the sketch really or end it when they, as you said, Julie. Every time someone says Sydney's won the Olympics, the big cheer.
Yeah, there wasn't really much to this sketch, but I've got the feeling like they felt like they had to comment on it from a losing country's point of view. Yeah, I think you're right, Julie. This does seem to be hastily cobbled together.
It is time for. Barjas, you've only heard that for the first time, haven't you, Prue? And obviously Julie, but it is Barjas. I Dream of Barjas, and it is adapted. Oh, who's it adapted by, Alison?
Well, it's adapted from the novel by Milan Kundera, the Czech writer who is famous for The Incredible Lightness of Being.
Wow.
And who we gonna get? Yeah, Unbearable Lightness of Being. Yes, indeed.
Which I have here and I've never read.
It does sound rather impenetrable, doesn't it? The Unbearable Lightness
street
of
library
Being.
things.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lightness of Being is obviously when Barjas kind of farted. He's felt a bit lighter.
So the episode has a special guest, cricketer Graham Yallop, if you're wondering. This is all about when Barjas is starting his music career, really.
Now, starting off with the dream sequence, though.
Oh, yes, yeah. When he's after a bee daiquiri.
I really wondered about the original episode of Bluey. It seemed like Bluey was having a depressive moment, like this whole thing where he's dropped out of work and he's at home drinking beer for breakfast and his co-workers are coming around to see if he's okay. Like, once again, I really want to see Bluey.
We will be recapping it.
On On the other hand, like if you notice the bit where the woman in the bar says to him, "Your place or mine," the actress genuinely is saying that in Bluey. So you know.
Yeah, I had to watch that and thought that lip sync does match up, doesn't it?
What about Beer Daiquiri? Did that match up?
No.
Maybe she was saying, "I'll have a shandy."
The Bargeass episode then sort of merges into Bargie's new single apparently coming out.
Don't break my ass, my bargy-wargy ass. I don't think my pants would understand. And if you break let me in the door.
It adds an extra level of realism when we're listening to the audio of the audience from the episode as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really was an inspired lyric to say, "I don't think my pants would understand."
So was that all? That was all genuine laughter then, Julie? Everyone was reacting in real time?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, we were all laughing, so you can't blame them.
I love the fact that they referred back to when the Bargy Wargy ass is getting airplay, that they reused the clip from last week's episode where they're doing the polka.
Yeah, the radio thing. Yeah.
The Radio Rebels. And my favourite joke of all time in this episode is when he's standing at the piano and he's like, "Where are the bloody keys gone?" And then he sits down.
That's such a good fat joke, isn't it?
Now, also, there's a little bit of I don't know what you might call it, pedantry and annoyance.
Pedantry.
On the DVD. So there's a joke where Anne Burke asks Bargeass, "Is that a Naji shirt?" And Bargeass replies, "No, it's a Bargy shirt." And for some reason, the subtitles on the DVD call it an RG shirt, ARGY, instead of Naji, which is a brand name, NAGEE.
Did Naji block the use of their name for some legal reason? I don't know.
I think it's just more that the subtitle writer probably didn't know what Naji was.
Yeah, possibly. You think they'd check it though, wouldn't you, the subtitles? Someone would go through it.
Considering how fastidious Tony Martin is with his DVDs, I'm surprised he didn't pick it up.
We're on stage now, and Tom has announced that they're going to Sydney to do a show next week. Oh, how about that? And in order to get your tickets, I don't remember them announcing this at all, unless it was printed somewhere.
Maybe it was only broadcast to Sydney like all the other Melbourne.
Could have been on radio or whatever like that.
Yeah, because I remember just being such a huge fan, but it's my memory is just blanked out in terms of remembering to apply for tickets or anything like that. But I know that you were meant to send in a photo of yourself with someone famous, and at the time I'm thinking, who have I got a photo of myself with someone famous? So I must have heard about it from somewhere. The only famous person I'd met at that point, which I had a photo with, was sadly Rolf Harris, which was about 11.
That aged well.
Yeah, that did not. But I
probably would have got tickets though.
I texted my friend Canio asking her, did you remember applying for tickets? That's when she talked about how it was her idea that they come to Sydney in the first place. As we'll see next week, they were in her, she was living in Marrickville at the time, which is where they did where Mick and Tony did the street interviews. So we'll talk more about that next episode. But yeah, I remember watching this and being highly disappointed that none of this pile of stuff that they're reading out had anything to do with what my friends and I wanted to do, which was to get on the show. So very envious of Julie. I'm glad I can live vicariously through your experience.
We all are.
Very welcome.
But there's an important detail here that we're missing, and that Tommy says, "I'll be going with Jane," and then turns his cheek around and he's got a lipstick kiss on it. Now, you know, and people mock me for saying that I thought that Tommy and Jane were a thing, because here's direct evidence, guys.
Yeah. He was doing it just for you, Alison, to wind you up.
Yeah. See, I had reason for thinking this.
But they did sort out the piles of letters too. One's with celebrities and one of Jonathan Coleman. So, yeah. Ballet, Jono. All right.
But also, there's a letter from the brother of Greg Cutcliffe.
Yes.
Yeah. Who was one of the toilet break. He was the toilet break guy who sort of, at the end, he kind of jumped around. Yeah. He sort of landed.
Leave me alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy.
Leave me alone. That, and then he did the big jump. Great stuff.
Speaking of toilet break, we have Act 6, Rita Eldridge. Now, Rita reminds me of my kindergarten teacher. Just that, you know, the piano playing. Anyway, here it is. Those little laughs are when she's just grinning away, occasionally just reminding herself, oh, I should smile for the judges.
Rita Eldridge is basically every single person in the 90s who had a maiden aunt or a piano teacher.
Yes.
Used to be Rita, or that sort of that weird woman from the end of the road. That's Rita Eldridge.
And wearing Miller's Fashion Club clothing.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that might have been Joy Reen, perhaps.
Adelaide's own Joy Reen.
That's obscure.
Look it up.
I think.
Oh, but I imagine that there are some Joy Reen ads on YouTube that people can look for.
It was very, very much dresses for the older woman.
Yes, going to a wedding possibly. It was a very mother of the bride type fashion at Joy Reid.
I got a lot of Power of the Dog vibes off this act. It was like, oh, this could go anywhere. Like woman who knows how to play happy show tunes, like they're gonna eviscerate her. I was like holding my breath.
And yeah, she's sort of doing that very 1980s kind of thing in which she's essentially playing a medley. So like all I'm thinking of as she's going from one song to another is things like Hooked on Classics, Hooked on Swing, Stars on 45,
but without the drum beat, without the doom.
Well, and that's exactly
that thud clap, thud clap, thud clap.
Yeah, and that's why Bernard just in his comments he says, "Well, you'd be great with a few other people accompanying you. We could release some albums and
on K-Tel Records." Yeah. He also calls her your dear old thing.
She must have lots of happy people gypsy tapping around her lounge room every time she tinkles away like that. You dear old thing. Why don't you get a good sax player? We've got one here who's available in a minute. And a nice little old drummer and a banjo player there. And make records. K-Tel would sell thousands of them for you. Especially if you do your own commercials, too. That always adds a touch of something je ne sais quoi. 21, darling.
21.
Oh, wow, there's so much.
What the hell is gypsy tapping, though?
Yeah, I need to know what gypsy tapping is. But also, what was that underhanded comment to the saxophone player? We've got one that will just become available very soon now.
The saxophone player's like, excuse me, I did not volunteer for this.
There's an awful lot of sarcasm in Bernard's sort of remarks there, isn't there?
Especially the, as we've learned from Commercial Crime Stoppers, yes, appearing in your own ad.
Yeah, I think that was the mean part of it. Like, clearly she's not going to be made for ads.
Well, Rita's album is sitting right next to the Panpipe Classics.
And 20 inappropriate love songs.
Yeah. So, 21. What a score.
It is, Matt. That puts Rita Eldridge with her piano medley in 6th place.
6th?
So... just behind Greg Cutcliffe, who we just mentioned earlier, in 5th.
Get the spreadsheet out and.
I add to it week by week, and I think I might have accidentally put her 6th when I should have put her 5th. Because
surely she's better than Greg Cutcliffe.
Yeah, it's going to say better than Greg, but probably Piffy's still
only slightly. Greg Cutcliffe got 22.
Love Greg.
Ooh.
Oh.
Leave me alone.
No, I'm right. She is 6th. So
wow.
6th Rita Eldridge, 5th Greg Cutcliffe, 4th Ian Evans with that mystifying performance. 3rd Darren Schutz with his magic act. 2nd Alan and Brenda, and 1st you know his name, Piffy.
We'll move on to the couch, and we've got lookalikes. I'll send out images of this because that's just too hard to explain, other than the fact that I did try to search and seek that specific cover of Juice magazine where he got Kurt Cobain looking a lot like Rob Sitch.
Yeah, I bought that edition of Juice magazine just for that exact reason. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me, but it's in a box somewhere in Adelaide.
I remember subscribing to Juice and getting a copy of the Beastie Boys. Couldn't that be possible? Wasn't that 94? I don't know, but I had a subscription.
Yeah, I had one as well. I had that edition where they interviewed the D-Gen as well.
But I did love the fact that they showed the clip of a Tony Martin lookalike in a creepy Australia's Most Wanted reenactment.
Oh, man. Yeah, the syringe stabber.
In a toilet block.
And I love the way Tony keeps a straight face when they're describing him as a man with a pale, sickly complexion.
Yeah.
Now, the next bit here is more or less Judith trying to integrate this kid, the producer's son, quote unquote, Darcy, which the team had to babysit. Now, Julie, who was Darcy?
I had never met Darcy, so I can only take them at their word that it was the producer's son.
Damn, I was hoping for more, but no, all good.
He was the other work experience kid I had to get rid of.
So when you were in the audience, Julie, how many of the sketches were things that you had already been aware of and how many were kind of new?
About half. I think that the nature of having a live comedy show and not really knowing how long all your sketches are going to go for meant that they had to have a bank of pre-recorded sketches. And I think that sometimes they just, had to really run down to the wire and include certain ones at the last minute and swap them in and out. So, the sketches that I was involved in ended up being sort of peppered through the next few weeks, which, was great for me because there was a lot of bragging rights in the high school playground. But yeah, I actually hadn't seen the Darcy sketch until it was broadcast live that night. But if the location nerds are interested, I pretty much tracked where all of these different things were filmed.
So the first one, Tony taking him to see Reservoir Dogs.
So I'm pretty sure that must have been the Classic Cinema in Elstonwick, and it was not really a distinctive location, but I'm betting that just from proximity that it was right near their office.
By the way, Darcy is roughly about 9-10 years old, so you've got to put that into context when you think about these things. So Jane uses Darcy for celeb spotting at lunch and pretending to be a socialite.
Now that's in St Kilda. That's definitely St Kilda, isn't it?
That definitely is the very well-known McDonald's on the corner of Ackland Street in St Kilda. What I loved about this as well is that Jane gives the most 90s lunch order anyone has ever had.
Oh yeah, the anti-pasto focaccia.
Oh my God.
I wrote it down because I loved it so much. Sun-dried tomatoes, black olives, anchovies, and roasted peppers on focaccia.
That is absolutely the 90s in a sentence.
Yes.
Yep.
And the funniest thing is actually she's technically sitting out the front of a restaurant at the time, which would have been Greasy Joe's. She would have had a fat chance of getting those things. She would have got a burger and fries.
So Rob uses him for prank calls. So I'm guessing this will be inside their home.
Yeah, it looks like just some nondescript home. It could have even been the same location that they filmed the very opening sketch.
Santo makes him watch the World Cup history or World Cup story of 1990 when he wants to watch Home Alone.
Again, in a home location.
Tommy G is making him use the chainsaw for yard work.
Probably the same house again.
Jason is making him clean out the insulation, finding asbestos.
And he makes him eat it too.
And Mick has taken him to the pub for beers.
I could be wrong, but I think it is actually the Prince in St Kilda, that pub.
Bloody hell, that's impressive. And Judith reads him Backlash, the Undeclared War Against American Women by Susan, is it Faldoui?
Faludi, I think it is. Yeah, an early 90s feminist classic, which basically argues that all of the gains made by the feminist movement in the 70s are being rolled back as early as the early 90s, and certainly she was very true about that one.
That's a good bedtime story for a child.
Well, maybe not appropriate for a 10-year-old boy, but, start him young, get him into feminism and understanding the roles of gender.
This is a really cute sketch. I find it very... It's quite authentic, isn't it? I mean, it just has this vibe that Darcy probably is, the producer's son because he's sort of got this natural kid vibe. But there's a couple of things that he does really well. That he's quite a good little actor, particularly in the pub with Mick. When Mick goes, there you go, you can have that. And he's got this pint and he just sort of looks around furtively while he starts to sip it. And I thought, oh, for a kid, he's done quite a good job there. But you can also tell that he's just a kid. Like he's not, I mean, he may have very well been an actor just like Piss Weak Kids, but, you know, it's got a very authentic vibe.
Yeah, I think he's a great actor, and he's that little eye roll when he's with Jane and they're about to encounter Marcus Graham. Just when he puts the sunglasses on, and he's just a bit fed up with it all. That's really funny.
And just all the scenarios too are very much in line with their personalities, apart from Jason's and Tom's, which is a classic kind of joke. The other ones are like, yeah, you can imagine Santo boring the shit out of you with like hours and hours of soccer videos, and you know, it was great.
You could really imagine Mick complaining that it's light beer.
It's time for Graham and the Colonel, and hey, once again, Sydney's won the Olympics.
Wow, Ken. Wow. That's all I've got to say. Wow. Wow. Sydney to host the 2011.
I shouldn't have said that.
I warned.
I know, my mistake.
I warned,
my mistake.
and that's a complete misuse of paper products.
I'm sure by then you're out of streamers and stuff.
I think there must have been a bottomless supply of them, and that cheer really says it all, that people did not run out of steam with the cheering.
They also do a throwback to September 11 episode where they actually predicted Sydney will win.
All right, okay, we didn't pick his exact mispronunciation, but by jingos we're in the right ballpark.
We thought it was going to be Sydney. Instead he says Sydney. It's like he's got a language all his own. The
beautiful language of Samaranch.
I reckon kids should learn Samaranch as a second language at school.
And see, that's where when we had it was episode 33 with Natalie Bohensky, where they were talking about Sydney, and apparently that was a Late Show thing when he actually doesn't say Sydney, it's just all Sydney.
Yeah. And the whole references last week is pretty much what we all went by years and years later, even though this particular episode is where they clarify that he doesn't actually say that at all. We all just assume that he said Sydney. It's one of those urban myths that just keeps going on and on.
Now, they believe it was the video presentation that influenced the victory. Even Graham and the Colonel's video was up for play, which is basically their opening montage, but with fanfare for the
ABC type sports coverage.
Yeah, with fanfare for the common man playing.
All the sports, curling, koi.
Yeah,
Those women with the kind of cut down and the bow ties.
They do mention, while 11-year-old Tanya Blanco was impressive with her speech, imagine if it was done by the kid they originally wanted, Nathan Cavalieri. Now, your connection, Kim, there is you went to school with
yes, we'll talk about this probably the next episode in more detail, but Tanya Blanco ended up going to my school. I was in year 11 when this aired, and in year 12 she joined the school. So the word on the street was Tanya Blanco is going to join our school in year 12, and we were like, "What, is this real?" And yes, there she was, and stifled giggles galore whenever we saw her walk past, and thinking, "This is us, Tanya Blanco," and the whole like. The hand gestures thing that Jane does in the next episode. But I've got video footage of our swimming carnival in year 12 where we basically did a practical joke that she was in on. They basically took her hostage and and just had like a water pistol, and we're kind of using that as kind of we have Tanya Blanco, we have your Olympic ambassador, and you have to do what we say. But we'll play a little bit of that footage next time.
Also, Graham and the Colonel were IOC delegates, but they did vote for Beijing as they had already taken the bribe. And Istanbul screwed up their presentation as they used clips from Midnight Express. Now, I don't get that reference. I've never seen Midnight
Well,
Express.
let me tell you about Midnight Express very quickly. Midnight Express is a film from the 70s in which an American is jailed in Istanbul, and the prison, there are very, very bad conditions in the prison, and it's very violent. And yeah, it's really touch and go whether he gets out of this prison or not. And it's quite a horrific film, but yeah, very, very acclaimed film of the era.
Gotcha. With the Sydney presentation, they got the King's Cross nightclub grifters. So that, the ones that stand out front of strip clubs. Yeah.
What Robert Santo do when they're impersonating those grifters is funny, isn't it? It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like the guys on Lygon Street in Melbourne who try and drag you into their Italian restaurants as well.
A bit more wholesome, their reasons.
And then there was an NRL Broncos versus St George final halftime entertainment Tina Turner joke there, which I'm not going to repeat.
Oh, yeah, that was bad, wasn't it?
Yep.
That whole thing sucked.
Mm-hmm. So we'll just move on from that. Yeah.
Like the speed of light.
Product of its time.
A product of its time. You haven't heard that for a while.
I am familiar.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So now we're on stage again, and Mick, you know what, they just wrap up the show, but I just love the fact that they go full double take crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
Tony nearly puts himself in hospital.
We have to yell out strongly and loudly, whiplash, whiplash.
Tony's head nearly falls off.
I know. I do love it at first when he comes out and goes, this body is solely the result of jazzercise.
And yeah, it's good to see Tony at the end as well, because because of all the makeup, we haven't seen a lot of him in this episode.
That is true, yeah. How fast do you think it would have been for him to take that off?
I think it probably didn't take very long because, it's just a matter of just grabbing the edge and ripping it off like a banana peel.
Oh, just like the fly.
So you couldn't have taken that back as work experience souvenir.
That's a very creepy souvenir, though.
Wrong somehow.
Only if you had a certain liking for Tony in that manner.
Oh,
I did not.
it's like Leatherface. Ugh.
This is like the Abbott turd in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Well, I wish I had done that now.
You had 3 opportunities to do it.
Yeah, they revealed the closing finale, the musical finale, and they just skip straight to it. They just forget the setup.
Funny.
Yeah, they're just like, our producer's just gone, oh, yeah.
Simon Townsend.
Yeah, according to an email from a listener, I don't have the email here. I'm so sorry. I've forgotten your name. I think it was Scott. My apologies. That he did talk to Jane about this, and then this might have been the one that might have had the certain issues. But this is, instead of Pete Townsend from The Who, there was Simon Townsend.
Yeah, there's a very strong Greg Cutliff kind of vibe to this, isn't it? The fact that he's both out of tune and then he comes in slightly late as well.
Yes, off key and off the beat.
Yeah.
Now, we only see a tiny little snippet in the best ofs, right?
Mm.
But you never saw who was actually behind Simon, and that was, I don't know if any of you saw it, but it was Tony, Mick and Alf doing backups.
At first you just see Mick and Tony as the backup singers, and then you see a wider shot and Alfie's there as well.
Were you there during the filming at all, Julie?
Not that one. I was actually there for the filming of Rex Hunt's rendition of Get It On, which you guys talked about last week. So what you don't see in the DVD is Jane was actually, really spearheading the operation, and all of the lyrics were written on huge sheets of cardboard, and the cardboard was in front of Jane, and she was coaching Rex, and I assume she coached everyone who, came along for the musical mix-ups. She points to each word, and she is coaching so hard to the point of willing them to get it right, and and acting it out and really emoting. And so when I was there for the Rex filming, it was my job to stand really close behind Jane and hand her the cue cards in order. So I imagine it was a really 2-person job to try and coach the celebrity into getting all the words right.
Awesome.
What a wonderful work experience. so much better than my nursing home experience where they just go and shower those 8 people.
I mean, that sounds good too.
It really, I don't think that was even legal at the time.
Oh, mine was just simply working in the school canteen, handing out sausage rolls.
That one wins.
Yeah.
I thought I won because I went to an advertising agency, which sounds exciting, except that what I had to do was cut out the ads they'd placed in the paper and stick them onto other pieces of paper with glue.
Okay, I think Julie wins.
Yeah, best work experience, Julie.
Yeah.
It set the bar pretty high, but the school that I went to, it wasn't an elite school by any stretch, and they used to warn us that if you didn't organise your own work experience, they would organise it for you at the servo.
That's a major threat.
The horror.
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned the email that you received about who was hardest to get to sing on the Late Show. That was actually sent by Peter Phoebe.
Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, his email mentioned that when he asked Jane Kennedy about 10 years ago at a book signing who was the hardest person to get to sing on the Late Show, he said that Jane interpreted hardest as in booking-wise, which was Joan Kerner, and Peter meant hardest as in singing-wise, which Jane answered the question with Simon Townsend. And then he adds, I can't reveal the reason why because it will require a 3-second beep.
Oh.
It's really interesting because Simon Townsend was quite beloved when I was a kid. Like Wonderworld was the best show. But funnily enough, if you remember 1993, he had this really awful daggy show called TV.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
I remember being
I used to watch that.
There was this kids show about TV, and it was just this horrible, like bringing on, industry insiders to promote something, and it was no enthusiasm for TV at all. I hated it.
Well, see, also Simon had a little bit of a falling out with the ABC over TV as well.
Yeah, because he left it, didn't he?
The program started out with him as host, and then he was sort of brought on more just for interviews, really.
Didn't James Valentine take over the hosting of that? Or I can't remember who it was. James Valentine.
Yeah, it was Tony Martin impersonator James Valentine.
This isn't Simon's only attempt at singing, because there was a compilation of songs put out, sort of a bit of a Wonderworld tie-in. And one of the original tracks was that they got Simon Townsend in to sing a cover of what else, but Simon says, have a listen to this.
Simon says, put your hands on your hips, let your backbone slip. Simon says, put your hands on your hips, let your backbone slip. Simon says, put your hands on your head. Simon says, bring them down by your side. Simon says, shake them to your left. Simon says, now shake them to your right.
Well,
and that's only 50 seconds.
Is it?
At least he's in tune.
Yeah. Only just, though.
And on the beat.
We love you, Simon Townsend. Hope you're well.
And I've got the game. I still have the game. So Simon says the world's funniest game. You can hear it here rattling. But I've had it ever since I was about 10 years old, and it's one of those games where you just get together with your friends and you do silly things. You read out cards and you do things like you can be a monkey, or you can call for cattle, and you can put a rape in your mouth and start talking, that sort of thing. And you all have to vote. And if you get more grins than groans, then you move ahead 3 spaces. And if you get more groans, you go back a space, and you can tell jokes. And it's a whole lot of fun. It's out of print, obviously, but I did see it in a Salvos in one of my regular kind of travels. But this is my genuine copy. It was going for about $25, so I think it's a little bit of a vintage find.
Now, Daniel G, do you have any Easter eggs in the credits?
Well, there's only 2 special guests, and one I don't remember seeing in the episode. We definitely saw Simon Townsend, because his name's running over his own bad singing. But I don't recall seeing Bruce Samazan in the episode. He's the other special guest.
You know what? Well, he probably was in a sketch which they might have dumped.
I reckon so. I reckon there might have been something dumped for time, and I'm not quite sure what. Because I don't recall Bruce Samazan appearing in the season elsewhere.
Who's the person that Jane sees when she orders the antipasto focaccia with Darcy?
Oh yeah,
That was Marcus Graham.
Marcus Graham.
Marcus Graham. Okay.
But also, we don't see him.
Yeah, you don't see him.
No.
But there was also one other person. Have you got more in the credits? Because I've got one person here which you may not have found.
Okay, well, there was also credited Ari Kader, Claudette De Silva, Darcy Logan, and Alex Tan.
Okay, well, you definitely have missed out on one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the unit assistant.
That's me.
Sorry, Julie.
Yes, I had no idea that I was going to receive any kind of credit. So, yeah, I got a big kick out of that when I saw that broadcast. And it really speaks to just how inclusive the environment was, and nobody talked about it. It just happened. And that really shows the tone that, the whole crew really set. And they're just wonderful people. And I felt really welcome.
Aw, what a great story.
Yeah. How did you spend your lunch times? Did you hang out with them?
I actually tried to leave them alone as much as possible because, they were on such a tight schedule that, if they weren't off filming pre-recorded sketches, they were, in meeting rooms writing the next set of sketches. So, I was always around and I sort of parked myself in like a social table and chairs area near the front door. So I was kind of more saying hi to them as they came and went. But my mantra for my work experience was, don't be a pest, do everything right, and stay out of the way. And so that worked pretty well for me. But yeah, I didn't try and overstay my welcome.
Yeah, and did this experience influence your current career then?
I think so. I ended up getting into advertising, but this was a real eye opener for me about things like teamwork and getting productions together really quickly. And I loved the industry in general. I didn't end up in sketch comedy, but yes, I did end up in advertising.
Sweet. Excellent.
So great.
That's really cool.
Because actually, work experience is sort of a thing of the past now. It's really sad. And particularly with the pandemic, it's just fallen off the radar completely. So, yeah.
So kids don't do it anymore.
No.
That and also work for the doll is just not as glamorous.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap it up. That's it for season 2, episode 15 of the Late Show, and also episode 35 of the Champagne Comedy Podcast. So don't forget to reach out to us. Email champagnelateshow@gmail.com, Twitter @TLSChampagne. Visit our website, champagnecomedy.com, Facebook, a Late Show, as well as search for the Champagne Comedy Podcast group on Facebook. It's on private. Answer the 3 questions and you're in. Anyway, you don't answer. You just do it and I just accept it. So also, Julie, thank you for coming on. It's been fantastic for you to be on the show. Do you have anything to plug, and do you have any quick little stories or snippets that you're in future episodes of or any other sketches other than the It's Academic? Or if you can talk about that if you want, but by all means.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I have to say that this podcast was so important to me in the depths of lockdown. When we couldn't leave more than 5K radius, I would actually go walking around the neighbourhood and listen to this podcast. So I actually love the fact the episodes were quite long because the more exercise I got was because of you guys. So that's been super important. I don't have anything to plug, really. I'm on Instagram. I collect vintage clothing in my spare time, so I can't imagine a huge proportion of listeners will be into it, but I am at Jules of Melbourne on Instagram if anyone likes vintage clothing. In terms of future episodes, I am still yet to be in Tommy G does a rap about how he hates basketball. I'm wearing a backwards cap and jostle him at the train station, so you only see my back. And of course, I am in the It's Academic sketch where I don't have any lines, but I just sit there and look smug, which wasn't difficult for me.
You've done better than the other people who have appeared on their dinner sketches and meant to be certain talkative or do certain things, but really don't, just sit there and do nothing. So you did a fantastic job.
Nailed it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Julie. And also, I just want to say thank you again, Alison, Daniel, Kim, and Prue for coming back again.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Excellent.
Anytime.
Again, thanks very much for listening, and don't forget to enter our competitions. Also, a shout out to Simon Owens again and Philip Brady. So thanks for being part of that, and thank you for listening. My name is Matt. Catch you next time on the Champagne Comedy Podcast. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
A man and his movies.
Thank you for listening to the Champagne Comedy Podcast, created by fans for the fans. For more information on this podcast, please visit champagnecomedy.com. Produced by Matt Fulton Productions, mattfulton.com.au.